A few of you devout holeheads may remember a while ago me making a terrible video on video game movies, and why they have the potential to be great. Despite how much I despise that video's shitty editing, awful voiceover and lack of music, the things I said in that video still run through the electricity in my brain to this very day. Is there a good video game movie? And is there one that does the game justice and perfectly replicates the feeling and look of the game it's adapting? So, when this thought was going through the neurons in my brain, I took to Netflix to look for a movie to watch, only to discover multiple Halo movies. I love Halo. It's one of my favourite video game IPs and is a franchise that means a lot to me. And in my opinion, the Halo games have always lent themselves well to being adapted to the silver screen. They employ incredible cinematography, shot composition and music, have stories which are incredibly cinematic and bombastic, and has an expansive, rich and complex universe which is open to tell so many stories in. There are a ton of things in the Halo mythos that would be great to make a movie about. The Human Covenant War, the conflict between the Forerunners and the Flood, the Spartan 2 program, the aftermath of Halo 3, the Covenant, just a ton of stuff. There are 4 movies based around the military sci-fi franchise. Halo, The Fall of Reach, Halo Legends, Halo 4, Foward Unto Dawn, and Halo Nightfall. The reason why I put movies in quotation marks is because almost all of them were originally made a web series and compiled into feature-length films afterwards. So while these technically might not be proper film adaptations for the silver screen, they are still by definition films due to the length of how the films are presented on Blu-ray and streaming services, so I'll be judging them as such. My goal with this video is to try and find a film that best represents Halo's universe, tone, and characters, to see if it's a good translation of the games to film. And obviously I'm going to be looking at which is the best film through elements such as writing, cinematography, acting, and production design. So, let's start this sucker off with Fall of Reach is terrible. It's not good, it sucks, it's stupid, and it doesn't have any Fall of Reach in it. So the entire thing was lies. They sold us with promises of seeing Reach get fucking obliterated, but instead we get this CGI bullshit. I hate it! So I should probably say the other reasons why it sucks pretty hard. Fall of Reach is definitely the most fascinating of the bunch to me, because unlike the other films in this video, it's actually an adaptation of not only the Halo games, but a Halo novel. Yes sir, this steaming pile of grunt shit is based off the acclaimed novel of the same name, Halo, The Fall of Reach, by Eric Nyland. And at the same time me writing this, I've actually been listening to the book on Audible, and it's actually surprisingly good. I've never properly dived into the Halo expanded universe aside from the occasional hidden Xperia video every now and again, but holy moly does this book make me want to dive into it further. It shows the darker side of the Halo universe and shines a light on the way the world we experience in the game came to be. It's especially impressive to me seeing as at the time of the book's conception, the only Halo game was Combat Evolved. That game's story is incredibly basic. Humanity is at war with an alien race known as the Covenant, and you are a Spartan super soldier capable of turning the tide of the war. It's a great setup for the gameplay and the story it's trying to tell, but there aren't many signs that hint towards it being much larger reasoning behind any of it. But Fall of Reach builds upon that foundation and makes something drastically different and makes Combat Evolved feel less like a simple science fiction plot and more like a part in a bigger universe. It created Spartan 2s, the Office of Naval Intelligence, Orbital Drop Shock Troopers, and Catherine Halsey, which would all later be major parts and stories of later games. And all that Eric Nyland had to go off of was Combat Evolved and its brief lore and the instruction manual. This story is beloved by the Halo community. So when they heard that there would be an animated adaptation of the story of the Master Chief, they were presumably hyped. However, I have my suspicions that this film wasn't made to give Nyland's novel the adaptation it deserved. If any of you remember the embarrassing build-up for Halo 5, 343 published this list of material you need to know in order to properly understand 5's story. There are major parts of Halo 5's story which are completely reliant on you being aware of the story of the Fall of Reach.
Like Dr. Halsey did for me.
No. That monster forced you. This is a gift.
So I guess out of sheer laziness and lack of good writers, they cobbled together the Norm of the North animators to shout out this product. Before I fully rip into this, like Guilty Spark did to Sergeant Johnson's insides,
Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable.
I'll give it some fair praise. The backgrounds for some scenes look really nice. If they had fully committed to a style which resembled a watercoloured motion comic, then it could have worked. There are shots which embrace that style that look beautiful, but unfortunately they are ruined by things in the frame which are fully animated. Secondly, Jen Taylor delivers a great performance. She knows the character of Halsey and plays her in a way no other person can. Everything you need to know about Halsey's performance is perfectly conveyed through Taylor's performance. But that's pretty much it for positives. The film looks like shit. There's no denying it. It's ugly, janky, and clearly made within the space of a few months, or dare I say weeks. The models look as if they weren't properly rendered. The textures look greasy and slimy. They're like partially rendered creatures in Fallout 4, which I guess was meant to be part of the watercolor motion comic aesthetic, but it doesn't really fit with the story they're trying to tell. Instead, it's extremely uncanny valley. In certain shots you can see which characters are animated and placed on top of the frame, and which are just parts of the background. It takes you out of the film immediately. Also, they never emote. They all have the same face throughout the entire thing. Mendez's face never shifts, Halsey's face never shifts, and John's face never shifts. They all have the same static, motionless expression, which is occasionally freakishly stretched to resemble a smile or a frown.
Who's next?
It's incredibly cheap looking and was clearly done to save time and money. Another complaint I have with it is that it has a very go animate quality to it. Most of the animation seems like assets bought in a store. There are several examples of this throughout the film, but one I keep going back to in my head is an awfully done fight in a gym. Punching animation looks weird and inhuman. The ODSTs walk almost in unison. It's just so weird looking. There's also an unbelievably bad gunfight scene. Why are they holding the guns like that? They look more like turrets than humans. Disregarding the awful animation, the voice acting is next level bad. They're like what the animation resembles. Puppets incapable of human emotion. They just say the line and that's it, done, next take. Halo has always had great voice acting. Steve Downes as Chief, Jen Taylor as Cortana, Keith David as the Arbiter, and David Scully as Sergeant Johnson. Nobody here who isn't from the game works. They all merge in my mind to a jumbled mess of stock American accents, or they have voices which are genetically engineered to be the most annoying, ear-grating thing I've ever heard in my life.
Blueberries? Nice! I hope these are blueberries. Better than the food in the mess.
I found it incredibly distracting how in the first act all the Spartans are meant to be 6, yet sound like they're voiced by teenagers.
But I was first.
The voices are too deep to be kids. They don't sound anything like them. One of the most haunting things about the audiobook was how the Spartans verbally changed from innocent children to be hardened, disciplined soldiers. John sounds no different from when he started the film to how he does when he becomes the Master Chief. On that note, Chief's voice actor sucks. He, like everyone else, barely emotes and doesn't suit his character whatsoever. There were no inflections in his vocal performance that made me believe that this is the guy I play as in Halo. The kid they cast just does not fit.
Do not make me laugh right now.
At the end of the film, when he puts on the iconic Master Chief Spartan armor, I was just constantly thinking to myself, that's not Chief. And then we cut to years in the future where we see Steve Downes reprise his role as Chief.
Take us home. To follow me. Will you trust me now?
So his voice changed that much from when he was 14 to when he was 46.
Spartans, this is what we've trained our entire lives to do. If we lose here, we lose everything. Let's send our own message.
Sam was my friend. He was my brother.
The guy who narrates the audiobook fits Chief perfectly. As soon as I heard him as a 6-year-old in the book, I thought to myself, that's the Master Chief. And unfortunately, I never really got it from this bozo. Also, the entire idea of this story being a movie at all really doesn't work for me. The character of the Master Chief is a blank slate. He's a vessel for the player to inhabit so that they can kill aliens and experience the Halo universe. I do not like the idea of showing Chief's face. In the book, it never bothered me. To me, Chief was the same in the book as he was in the Bungie games. Stoic, quiet, loyal, and tough. The book definitely gave him a character, but his development and personality were internal, as opposed to external. We know what makes him tick, but we never see that in the games because he's the best of the Spartan 2s. The perfect super soldier, unquestioning and unwavering in his loyalty to his fellow Spartans in the UNSC. John in the film is the exact opposite. He just talks too much, which is one of the weaknesses of adapting a book to a movie, I guess. He's always talking, and there aren't many moments where he's quiet and reserved or the Chief we know, where we get to see his development and personality visually. It's the same problem I had with Halo 4. He's too much for character. And ironically, they take away a lot of great character moments from the original book and make him seem like so much more of an asshole. In the book, during the winter mission, in order to verify whether or not the people guarding the Pelican are friend or foe, he makes a plan involving Sam faking a broken leg. If the man helps him, he's an ally. If he does anything other than that, he's a threat. It's small, but it shows a lot about John's character. It shows he's methodical, tactile, and always thinks before conflict. He also makes sure each member of his team is safe and doesn't get left behind. But in the movie, it doesn't show him planning. So they just lure a guy in the woods and pelt him with rocks. Or in another scene in the film, the gym fight. In the book, John makes a careless mistake by taking a pin out of the weights. When the ODSTs call him out on his mistake, he apologizes and attempts to reason with them. And when they threaten him, he has a dilemma as to how to react to them. He only knows 3 ways of dealing with people. If they are a superior, he obeys them. If they are a teammate, he helps them. If they are a threat, he eliminates them. His conflict during this part is how he should react. They outrank him and their fellow servicemen to the UNSC, however they're also being aggressive towards him and pose a threat. So, how should he react? What is appropriate to do? But in the movie, he just fucking kills them with no questions asked. This brings up another major problem with the movie. It skims through so much of the novel to attempt to sum up all the vital information from the novel about Chief's origin to shove into Halo 5. This results in a story that feels unfinished and poorly written. A lot of the changes seem to have been made for the sake of finishing it quick to suit Microsoft's demands. We're supposed to believe that Blue Team has this unbreakable bond and that they're friends to the bitter end, but we never feel it. We just get a lot of, oh, don't make me laugh.
Do not make me laugh right now.
And, oh, he's our best friend.
Sam was my friend.
We're not shown any real moments of camaraderie or friendship other than, haha, you do a bad owl impression.
You sound nothing like an owl, Sam.
Ah, I've been practicing.
It sounded exactly like an owl. I was just drawing you out of cover.
It's a pretty big issue, seeing as the entire climax of the film hinges on you caring about Sam and Blue Team's friendship, but we never see it. It's just a lot of insisted importance when really it means absolutely nothing. Also, check it out, George from Halo Reach is in this movie for no reason.
Listen, Reach has been good to me. Time has come to return the favor. Don't deny me this. Tell him to make it count.
Last one up gets it, Jorge!
My name's pronounced George.
Don't you backtalk me, Jorge!
Now, is this movie good? No, it's terrible. But not without its redeeming qualities. Honestly, some shots I thought looked beautiful, albeit they're ones without humans in the frame and are all just backgrounds, but they look really nice. It's just a shame that those shots lack meaning or purpose. They're basically just paintings. Nice to look at, sure, but you're not going to get much of an emotional experience from that painting. It's not enough to save it, it's still terribly written, voice acted, and animated. And the pacing is terrible. The film's only 64 minutes long, but my god, do you feel every minute. But does this film do a good job at representing Halo's universe? I guess. At no point did I feel like what I was watching wasn't Halo. The imagery was recognizable and didn't feel like something drastically different from the games, but it didn't show what makes Halo so special. The writing, the universe, the music, the cinematography, and most importantly, the writing. Also, a common complaint I'll have with these films are the shitty 343 redesigns. This one is the most distracting for it. Another thing I love about Halo is its art design. I don't want to get into a whole tangent about the art design debate, but let's just say whoever designed this clearly has no idea what they're fucking doing. And seeing the Halo 4 and Halo 5 designs in a prequel to every other game was incredibly distracting for me as a Halo fan. I don't want to talk about this dumb movie anymore. Surprisingly, I found this one to be alright, which is a huge shock considering it was made to promote probably my least favourite Halo game, Halo 4. Yes sir, this movie was also made to promote a Halo game. However, unlike Fall of Reach, this isn't required reading for 4. The stated intention of this one was to try and introduce the Halo franchise to a new group of people, which is actually kind of cool. Despite the film being called Halo 4 Foward Unto Dawn, it doesn't really feel like an ad. I don't know much of the story behind this one, but I got the strong feeling that the people working on it cared about what they were putting out. Notice how I used the word okay instead of good. This film has problems. The plot of Halo 4 Foward Unto Dawn is basically the origin story of a kind of throwaway character from Halo 4 called Thomas Lasky, and how he became the captain of the Infinity. The film opens up on a really bizarre sequence focusing on Cortana spending years in the Foward Unto Dawn after Halo 3 waiting for Chief to wake up. The reason this is weird is because Cortana's rampancy and the Chief's cryostasis is not hardly a part of the narrative at all. You could cut out the entire opening and nothing in this plot would be changed. I suppose this was done to rope in fans and give them a tease of what's to come in Halo 4, but why? What's the point? The stated purpose of this film is to gain new fans and introduce them to the Halo universe. If I knew nothing about Halo, my immediate thought would be, who is this robot girl? Why is this guy in a cryopod? Who is Master Chief? The film kind of assumes that you already know who these characters are and why they're here, which is kind of a problem if you're trying to attract new people and distracts from the main narrative of the film. Anyway, the film opens up with Lasky exiting cryosleep and heading straight into combat training, where we're introduced to cardboard cutout characters like Girl from Narnia, Bully, Nerd, Asian, and Sergeant Johnson knockoff who's played by an actress that really doesn't fit her role.
Axios! Axios! A study! Right! Double! No!
Despite the bland characters and kind of bad dialogue,
Realize you and Lasky are the reason I had to run the tour yesterday with you noobs. And why we all had to get up at 0400.
Yes, sir.
So as you can imagine, I'm pretty hungry. And I do love this Academy's quiche.
the production design of this is actually surprisingly good. The film only had a budget of around $8.5 million, but for the most part it really doesn't look it. You see that Warthog? That's an actual working vehicle that was built from scratch, which is super impressive given the budget. The sets look pretty good and really fit into the Halo universe, and aside from the oversized helmets and cheap CG, I could easily see a film of this caliber released in the cinema today without looking like a web series. A lot of my problems with this film are mainly from a filmmaking level. Foward Unto Dawn has a huge over-reliance on shaky cam and handheld, which is incredibly distracting. In my last video on 28 Days Later, I talked about how that film used the technique of shaky cam effectively and not having it be distracting to the action of the film. Foward Unto Dawn did not get that memo. In almost every action scene, the camera goes all over the place. It's distracting. I want to focus on this scene you're showing me, I want to take in the action, but throwing the camera around needlessly like an ape to show intensity is just annoying and is a perfect example of a film that uses it poorly. Another thing I love about Halo's iconic look is the use of colour in its art style. The Covenant is made up of glowing, vibrant alien colours, whereas the UNSC utilise more green and earthy colours in their military. The result is a very colourful looking game series, which gives each set piece so much flair and personality. But in this it looks like a fucking Zack Snyder film. It's so hideous to look at. It's all grey and bland, and it's the most visually unengaging thing ever, and it just makes me want to go to sleep. If you want to show newcomers to the franchise what Halo is, then maybe you should take inspiration from that art style. Halo Reach is a gritty war story, but even that had some visually appealing uses of colour. Every shot in the cutscenes of that game looked like a goddamn painting. The actual story of this film is fine. It's not really engaging, and I fail to see why this is a story that needs to be told. Lasky's backstory never comes into play in Halo 4 and is a completely different character to what he was like in 4 and 5. I found the concept as somebody joining the UNSC to do their family proud, one of which was an ODST, to be a neat basis for a Halo movie, but they never fully take advantage of what that concept could bring. The scenes between Lasky and his corpse brother are okay, but they don't do a good enough job at conveying the bond between those two. Due to the bland characterization, I didn't care about anyone in this film, so when we see each of them die or get impaled by huge aliens, I felt nothing. When Narnia got shot in the stomach and fucking bled out and died, I felt nothing, and the romance between her and Lasky is extremely underdeveloped. It becomes a romance minute before she dies. Before that, it was nothing, and afterwards, it's just nothing. I don't care about anyone, I spent the entire runtime waiting until the Covenant show up and kill everyone. However, there is one character that elevates this all and makes it way better. Chief! He's only 15 years old in this movie and he's still a total badass. They did a great job with his characterization. He doesn't speak too much and he only says stuff when he needs to. He plays a fairly minor role and the guy who voices him does a pretty good job. They also did a good job when it came to filming him. The people who made this were clearly very aware of how limiting their $8.5 million budget would be when it came to special effects. So as a result, they're fairly mindful of how to shoot visual effects. The Covenant is only usually shot in the dark, and are usually fragmented to give the illusion of them seeming like a bigger threat and to mask the imperfections in the CG. And Chief is also similarly fragmented, to not make him look like a tall man in a plastic spacesuit. Doesn't mean that it doesn't look bad, however. The jackals that shoot Narnia look next level bad. The loot looks awful when you see it up close. The hunter looks great though, but overall it was just a fine, inoffensive army movie. It's very boring in a few places and has no characters or neat visual spectacle, but it's fine. A few of the actors do a good job. I thought Lasky and Chief's voice actor were fine, but Narnia, Nerd, and Sergeant Johnson knockoff weren't that great. Felt like they didn't know what movie they were in. As for if it's a good Halo movie, I'm gonna have to say no to that. The only real similarities it's got to Halo are purely visual. It's got things from Halo, like the assault rifles, Warthogs, Spartans, Covenant, and ODSTs, but doesn't really feel like Halo at all. You could replace it with almost any other sci-fi universe and almost nothing would be changed. Hell, you could even set it in modern day and there would still be next to no difference. And even though it was made with the intention of getting new people interested in the Halo franchise, it does a pretty bad job at it. Somebody who knows nothing about Halo would just be wondering, who's this blue lady? What are Spartans? Who is Oni? Who are the insurrectionists? What are ODSTs? Why do these random aliens show up for no reason? It does not do a good job at easing you into the Halo universe. Also, I keep thinking back to how I was introduced to Halo with Combat Evolved. It's fairly silly and basic with its storytelling, has its serious moments, but for the most part it has the same tone as an 80s military sci-fi film. If somebody watched Halo 4 Forward Unto Dawn and then moved on to Halo Combat Evolved, I feel like they'd just mostly be confused. Giving it credit, it's a decent introduction of what people can expect from Halo 4, but Halo 4 isn't much of a good indication of what to expect from the Halo franchise. So I can't recommend it as a movie, and I can't recommend it as a Halo movie, so it's just an extremely meh film.